Um, why did you choose the musicians you chose to play with Bonar?
Well, basically, I was talking with Roga, and I've known Roga for a while, and we met him through a mutual friend of ours, and I was going to do a project with him called Revolting, which was just basically like a recording project. I was just going to come in and do some vocals. Well, things with that eventually didn't work out, and Roga still talked to me on, over the internet and on the phone and online, and would say, I really want to do a band with you that's a real band. And I said, hey, man, that's no problem. I really want to do, something either. And at the time, I knew I was going to be leaving Gnawer. I was in Gnawer at the time, but I knew that my time was limited in that band. I knew I was going to be leaving. So I started talking to Roga about it. I said, well, if we do this, can we make it a real band? And Roga suggested a few different people. And I listened to the different people he suggested, and we chose from that way. Right away, Ronnie was like a choice that was just, I wasn't even thought of. It was like, oh man, this is great. Ronnie's, a great guitar player. Let's use him for sure. And then I was surprised when we got Morgan to do it, because Morgan in Nagflar is a bass player. So when I was kind of like skeptical at first. I was like, is he going to be able to do it? And they kept saying, yeah, he can play drums. He's really good. When I first heard the first demo tracks of him playing the drums, I was amazed. I was like, wow, he's got it. He's not trying to be too fancy. He's understanding where we're coming from, and that's how it pretty much worked out that way.
Where did you come up with the idea to do Bone Gnawer and cannibal horror movie inspired death metal?
Well, I kind of was thinking about. I've always wanted to go back to doing the horror influence type lyrics, and I really hadn't been able to do that. And when I did Massacre, I did more of a kind of like the Lovecraft thing. Everything was very Lovecraft based and everything like that. And I wanted to return to the stuff that I had done when I first got into death metal, when I first started doing this stuff back in Death, in Madison Death in 1983 and 85. And we were very influenced by horror movies. I mean, if you look at Scream Bloody Gore, it's very horror movie influenced. Just about every single song on there, I could point out to you what Evil Dead, of course, is Evil Dead. Regurgitated Guts is based on The Gates of Hell. Torn to Pieces is based on Cannibal Holocaust. So I wanted to go back and write those type lyrics. For years I've always wanted to do that, but I just never found the band to do that. When I was in Denial Fiend, the whole purpose of Denial Fiend was to be more about my take on the 50s type of horror movies and the early 60s type of stuff, and the very, very zombie influence, but not the modern zombie, but more like the old school, the Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead type influence from the 60s and 70s, and that's where I took. But I wanted to do something that was more extreme and more gory, and I needed a band that could both fit it musically as well as lyrically. And then when I finally got with Roga and said, old school Swedish buzzsaw sound, this is going to be perfect for what I wanted to do. And when I told Roga about the ideas, he was all for it. He was like, oh yeah, and I especially told him what movies I'm influenced from. And I told him it was Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Hills Have Eyes and The Wrong Turn and Anthropophagus Beast and Making Them Die Slowly. He was all for that. He was like, I love that stuff. That's great. So it really came from a love of the horror movies and just an agreeing that that was the way to go. And especially with gore metal, death metal, I found that a lot of gore death metal kind of went to the way that Carcass did, where there's a lot of gore death metal bands out there, and they're really great, but they sort of kind of followed in the footsteps of Carcass, where you have these really extreme, gory, lyrical death metal bands, but they're still doing the Carcass thing. They're writing stuff that you basically have to get a medical dictionary out to basically understand what they're singing. And I wanted to go a different way. I wanted to be more extreme and more gory, but I wanted to write lyrics sort of with a hook and in layman's terms, something that the everyday guy can understand. And that was like the general idea behind the Bone Gnawer lyrics and the way that we approached those.
With Bone Gnawer, you went with more of a traditional death metal style. What are your thoughts on some of the newer styles of death metal out there?
Well, I don't think today's styles is really death metal as much as it's kind of deathcore or grindcore, slamcore. I know that they want to tag it and put it as death metal. Hell, I even heard that Slipknot was called death metal.
That's a joke.
I know. So it's to me, I find it hard to say when someone says a modern death metal band, I'm really not knowing. See, there's newer death metal bands that I think retain a really good old school sound. Like, for example, my friends from Chicago area Cardiac Arrest. They're a relatively new band. They've got 2 albums out. They've been around for a little while, but they're not as old as the other guys, but they still have an old sound. And I think there's a lot of bands out there that still can come out new and have an old school sound and retain that old school sound. Like the band, we're about to come out with a split for Halloween with a band called Bonesaw from Scotland. And they're very autopsy sounding. They have a very, autopsy type sound, and they worship, Chris and all the old autopsy stuff. But then you have like the bands like, I guess, like Necrophagist and I can't think of the slamcore type bands, because I don't really listen to them. But I know they're out there, and I don't really, it's kind of hard for me to accept them as death metal bands, because they're their own unique, subcategory of whatever it is. Unfortunately, they're put in, Job for a Cowboy, there's one. I don't really think Job for a Cowboy is a death metal band, but they're categorized as a death metal band. To me, they're more slamcore,
Yeah. Do you plan on doing any tours with Bone Gnawer?
Yeah, I'm trying to get a tour, and that's one of the hardest things that in this band that we've come across, is trying to get a tour. And there's a couple reasons for that. One reason, our record label, which is Pulverized, doesn't give tour support. So it's kind of hard to get on a tour with a promoter when you have no tour support, no backing. And the way that the touring industry works, and the way the thing is, when you're a new band, you have to pay to get on a tour. That's just the way the industry works. Unfortunately, we don't have anyone to back us and give us the money to pay to get on a tour, so we can't get any promoters interested in promoting us or taking us on a tour. So we're stuck in a catch-22 sort of thing. We're a brand new band. We're doing great. We're getting great reviews. Everything's going well. But promoters won't take a brand new band for the simple fact they don't know if it'll pull in enough money. And basically, this is a dirty business where everything's about money. And when you come to a live performance, the promoters want money, and they want to make sure that the band that they're booking in their club or whatever is going to pull in the money so they can make their money. Well, when we are a new band, a promoter seems to feel that that's a risk, and they don't want to take that risk, so they expect you to pay money first. It sounds awkward, I know, people don't realize it, but bands usually have to pay first before they start making money, and we're kind of stuck in that situation. I'm trying to get somebody to take us on tour, but been having a heck of a time trying to get promoters to really listen to us.
What are some of your plans for the future?
Well, right now, for Bone Gnawer has, like I said, we have a split coming out with Bonesaw on Appeline Productions. That'll be coming out on Halloween. We do have a few shows set up in Scandinavia in March of next year, so I'm going to be flying over there to do those. And we're going to be getting ready to record a new follow-up album, because we've already started writing new music. And hopefully we'll be putting out another album, full-length album, next year. I also have on my account, I have another new band called The Grotesquerie, which is more technical death metal, but not in the way that it's all technical and fast. It's more technical in the old school, like Unleashed style. That should be coming out on Cyclone Empire Records, hopefully in January. Everything's already done. We're just finishing up, everything with that and getting that released. I have a couple other projects that I have in the works coming up, but I also do, I'm a partner in a partnership with an independent movie company right now. We just did one of our shorts, which I co-wrote, and I actually have a cameo appearance in. It's a zombie comedy short called Betty Deadly, and that you can get that actually on YouTube. And so I'm keeping busy. I'm keeping really busy, not only in music, but writing movie scripts and trying to do horror movies and really trying to stay busy.
Well, that's all I had planned for the interview. Thanks for the interview. Is there anything you'd like to say in conclusion?
Well, I'm just happy for the interview. Thanks for the support. I hope fans out there will keep supporting Bone Gnawer and looking for the stuff that I'm doing, because I'm not stopping. I've got plenty of stuff coming in the future as far as with Bone Gnawer, like I said, in the Grotesquerie, and a couple other projects I've got coming out, and my movies thing. So I'm, hopefully fans will stick with me, and fans will become friends, and that's the way I look at it, that we're all friends, and, keeping a close unit and just keeping the support